Hello, in this short video I'll be going over sets and the interface for tanks. So you would have seen in Wargaming's previous posts and videos that they have a tech tree view. This does not mean sets are gone. Sets are remaining because sets are just an outright better system than tech trees. If you can group similar tanks together and not have to grind through one same tank to get through a bunch of different other tanks, it's a good system. You also can grind, well, a tier 10 tank and skip maybe a horrible tier 9 that you don't like to play, or something along the lines of that. Basically, any tank in a set can grind any other tank in a set, and that's a good system. It's an upgrade, especially when you don't have to grind like 6 European tier 6 tanks from one Stridsvagn M42. But sets remain, but tech trees are also back. And the reason being, tech trees are a great system to understand sort of what you have to do to get to a different tank. A linear sort of view for telling you, oh, this is how you get up the tree towards your end goal vehicle. So tech trees are back for a more sort of linear view, a more easier to understand and simple sort of system to grind up the tree. However, the way sets work is still the same, and that doesn't change with this view. You can also see that there are sort of toggles at the front, the top of the page, one for premium and collector, which adds in all the premium and collector tanks, which is kind of confusing because the line goes through them, which might confuse a new player, making them think they need these tanks to progress up the tree when they don't. And the other toggle is for row or column, so it allows you to change the view to be a bit more compact from side to side, to be more vertical, so you can sort of customize how it looks. Currently these settings do not save, so when you do exit it will reset back to the default, but yeah, at least they exist. There is an issue with the tech tree sort of interface screen, and that is certain tanks which are in a set mainly composed of other nations' vehicles are sort of off, floating in the middle of nowhere. So here's a good example. LTTB is the only Soviet light tank in the Warhounds set, so it's kind of on its own. That's not the biggest offender though, because if you look down here, K91, the only Soviet heavy tank in a set of American heavy tanks. ST-62, the only Soviet medium tank in a set of Chinese light tanks. The 268 version 4, the only Soviet tank destroyer in a set full of Chinese tanks. So yeah, some tanks are just off in the middle of nowhere, and you can see if you change to the row view, it's even worse. And it can make them quite hard to find unless you use the search feature, like so. And now it does show you where the 268 version 4 is. But yeah, a little bit of a flaw on the tech tree screen, but overall still a very good implementation and a very good thing to have in the game. Next, the all tanks interface. So previously we had collections, which was kind of useless. Who knows what any of these icons mean, but all tanks is very helpful for most players. All players should be, just because it shows every single tank in the game, including the ones you do not own. So it's easier to see if I click the flag icon. So you can see here the tanks which I own all have a flag behind them, and then the ones which I don't own don't have any flag behind them. So I can easily see which tanks I do not have in my garage, and I can also filter by nation, by type. Unfortunately though, you can't filter by the tier, which is a bit annoying, because if I wanted to see all tier 9 heavy tanks compared, I wouldn't be able to do it. But still, overall, a very useful screen to have for finding tanks and all of that. Now finally, the carousel. Wargaming has worked on this a fair bit. They've added back flags behind tanks, so you can see here the default view is tiers, which doesn't have any flags behind tanks. This is what we had in Ultratest 1, makes tanks a bit hard to find. So they've added Classic, which has the flags behind the tanks, which helps find them much more easily. On top of this, they've added a bunch of other flags. A bit confusing at first, especially as some sets, well, some tanks have changed to not be hybrid but instead be something else, like Titan is now its own sort of sub-nation, Defender as well, Argo for all those season tanks, there's Wasteland tanks, and they're all not part of the hybrid nation now, they're their own sub-nation. So a little bit confusing, but will take some getting used to, I guess. The filter overall though is a lot easier to use and finding tanks is much better. There are also a bunch of flags which have nothing, for example Finland and Scotland, but Wargaming has said the reason these are here is because they do plan to add some tanks in the future. So yeah, that is it for overall tank interface, finding tanks and all that for the second Ultratest and changes to the first. Thanks for watching.